So then what's changed since being diagnosed as type 1 diabetic? Firstly, I have to take insulin every single day, and I have to take two types of insulin. I have to take rapid acting insulin. Rapid acting insulin, you take about 10-15 minutes, or I take 10-15 minutes before every meal. I take it in proportion to the amount of carbohydrates in that meal. So let's say, for instance, I have a meal with 80 grams of rice. Ideally, I've weighed it out. If not, I have to eyeball it. Then for every 10 grams of carbohydrates, I have to take 1 unit of insulin. And there are a few factors which affect this, which I won't go into in this video. And then the second type of insulin that I take is the long-acting insulin. I take this every day before bed at 10 p.m. And the nurse described this as mopping up the background insulin. So what this does is this keeps the blood glucose stable throughout the day, even when I'm not eating or when I'm sleeping. Whereas the rapid acting insulin is only around meal times and is there to counteract the extra glucose that my body is getting from food. Or rather, not to counteract it, but to be able to use it as fuel for the activities of the day or for exercise, etc. Now, taking insulin comes with a danger, which I'll go into in a moment. But the danger of unmanaged type 1 diabetes at the extreme is diabetic ketoacidosis. But there's also another one, which is over the long term. If you have very high or quite high glucose levels, or even higher than normal, what happens is your body deposits that excess glucose in small capillaries around your body. So there are some organs which have particularly small blood vessels, for instance, your eyes or other sensitive areas. And if you don't properly manage your blood glucose and it's quite high, then your body over your life, days, weeks, months, years, etc., is making these small deposits, and it is effectively clogging up your arteries and veins and these small capillaries, which is incredibly bad for your organs and is very bad from a longevity perspective. And this is exactly why type 2 diabetes is the cause of so many illnesses and deaths throughout the Western world. And now taking external insulin is what stops high blood glucose, but then taking it also comes with this danger. If you take too much insulin, then your blood sugar can drop very quickly. And in that case, what you need to do is to take some carbohydrates or a glucose tablet in order to bring it back up. This is the dreaded hypo that type 1 diabetics can get, where if they pass out, it's because their blood sugar has dropped dangerously low. Since diagnosis, I've never had a hypo where I've actually passed out or it's been dangerously low. I've had moments where it goes a little bit lower and I can feel that in my body. You feel that your body starts to get a little bit sweaty, a little bit clammy. You lose your focus a little bit. You might become like slightly anxious as well. That's when it's starting to drip a little bit low. The best way to think of that is someone who is normal, has normal blood sugar, but is running a very long marathon and their body is run out of energy and they start to get a little bit wavy and they might faint. That is very similar to a type 1 diabetic having a hypo. And so because of these two polar opposite dangers that a type 1 diabetic faces, high blood glucose and the low blood glucose, the goal for type 1 diabetics is to keep it in this safe zone between 4 and 10 nmol. But to be optimum, we want to keep it on the lower side between 4 and 6 realistically. And if you're hyper efficient, maybe 4 and 5, and that prevents the negative consequences of high blood glucose. So at this point, you can see what the key differences are between type 1 and type 2 diabetics. It's worth mentioning that a lot of the things that type 2 diabetics can do to either manage or reverse type 2 diabetes also help a type 1 diabetic. So healthy eating, lifestyle, exercise, etc. These sorts of things, which are incredibly powerful for type 2 diabetics, do also help type 1 diabetics. And from my point of view, I'm trying to get every single edge that I can, which is why I'm so focused on all these extra hacks and optimizations that I can make to better manage my blood glucose. And actually, more than manage, I really want to be able to feel my absolute best, not just manage my blood sugar. I would say in many ways, I'm quite glad that of all the possible things, of all the possible conditions, medical conditions that I could have, that I've had or I have type 1 diabetes because it's definitely a condition which is, one, very manageable. Not only can I live like a normal life, but I can live as long, maybe even longer than a normal person. So it's infinitely manageable, infinitely. There's nothing really that I can't do. But what's quite nice about it is it gives an extra reward, all those healthy behaviors that I would have done anyway. There's now just a massive, real, deep, motivating reason to pursue them with a renewed intensity, for sure. On the flip side, the toughest thing about type 1 diabetes is the fact that it is genuinely a little bit relentless. There are no days off, there's no moment off, there's no time when you can't be on top of your blood sugar, basically. And that's a little bit low-key stressful, but I wouldn't use the word stress. I would just say it's simply relentless, and so you really have to be on top of it. If there really is one takeaway, me personally, that I've got from this part of my story arc is, and it's going to be cliche, it really is like, time is precious. Any weird thing can happen to you. It might not be type 1 diabetes, it might be something else, but there really is like a renewed reason to spend your time in ways that you really personally want to spend it, and with the right people as well. Honestly, all the other stuff that I want to add to this video are all these like extra nerdy optimizations that I've found have really helped me manage my blood sugar, would definitely help other type 1 diabetics, would help type 2 diabetics. And then what I think is potentially interesting is, given there's a renewed focus in society around longevity, wellness, etc., is there are so many people who could benefit from better managing their blood glucose in the short term in terms of their energy levels, for instance, that post-lunch crash, and definitely over the long term in terms of how do they feel as they get into their older age and what is their body susceptible to, etc., etc. As a diabetic with well-managed blood sugar, I can go to the gym, eat well, go out, sometimes sleep, sometimes not, skydive, snowboard. There's no real kind of like limit on my life per se, but I do need to be on top of my blood sugar.